Most people noticed what you accomplished. Very few noticed what it cost you. And almost nobody asked if you were okay. Not really. Not beyond the automatic question people ask before moving on to something else. How are you? Good, good. And that's usually the end of it. Nobody pauses long enough to hear the real answer. Nobody slows down enough to notice when something feels off. Because in today's world, being busy is normal. Being tired is normal. Being stressed is normal. So when someone is struggling internally, it often disappears into the background, especially if they're still functioning, especially if they're still showing up, especially if they're still doing what needs to be done. That's the strange thing about adulthood. People stop measuring how you feel. They start measuring what you can produce. Can you go to work? Can you pay your bills? Can you answer messages? Can you handle your responsibilities? If the answer is yes, most people assume you're fine. But functioning and being okay are not the same thing. Someone can be productive and exhausted. Someone can be successful and miserable. Someone can smile and still feel completely disconnected from themselves. Most people know this intellectually, but very few people recognize it when it's happening to them. Because survival is deceptive. It doesn't always feel dramatic. It doesn't always look like a crisis. Sometimes survival looks ordinary. You wake up. You get dressed. You go to work. You come home. You repeat the same routine tomorrow. Nothing appears wrong. But inside, something feels different. The enthusiasm isn't there anymore. The excitement isn't there anymore. The sense of possibility isn't there anymore. You're moving through life, but you're not really inside it. And because nothing has completely fallen apart, nobody notices, including you. That's one of the reasons emotional exhaustion is so difficult to recognize. People expect burnout to feel dramatic. They expect a breakdown. They expect tears. They expect panic. But often it doesn't happen that way. Sometimes burnout arrives quietly. It slowly removes your ability to care. It slowly removes your curiosity. It slowly removes your energy. Until one day you realize you're no longer living. You're maintaining. You're preserving. You're surviving. And survival has a way of becoming invisible when it lasts long enough, especially for people who have been carrying responsibility for years. The reliable ones, the dependable ones, the people everyone turns to when something goes wrong. Most people think being reliable feels empowering, and sometimes it does. But there is another side to it. A side that almost nobody talks about, because the more reliable you become, the less people check on you. The stronger you appear, the less support you receive. The more capable you look, the less concern people show. Not because they're cruel, because they assume you're fine. After all, you're handling everything. You're solving problems. You're taking care of responsibilities. You're helping other people. Why would anyone worry about you? And that's how a strange trap begins. The person who needs support often becomes the person everyone depends on. The person carrying the most weight becomes the person nobody thinks to help. And eventually that creates a quiet kind of loneliness. Not the loneliness of being alone. The loneliness of being unseen, because there is a difference. You can be surrounded by people and still feel invisible. You can have conversations every day and still feel unheard. You can spend years around others without feeling understood. And for many adults, that's exactly what happens. Especially men. Many men grow up learning that emotional struggles should be handled privately. Pain should be managed privately. Fear should be managed privately. Confusion should be managed privately. Weakness should be managed privately. Over time, this creates a habit of carrying things alone, a habit of solving everything internally, a habit of staying quiet. At first, it seems useful. It creates independence. It creates resilience. It creates self-control. But eventually, every strength has a cost. Because if you spend enough years carrying everything yourself, you begin to forget how to share the weight. You stop reaching out. You stop explaining. You stop asking. Not because you don't need help, because you've become accustomed to not receiving it. And that habit becomes part of your identity. People start describing you with words like strong, independent, reliable, disciplined. But internally, you may feel something completely different. Tired, disconnected, numb, lost. Not because you're weak, because you've been carrying too much for too long, and nobody ever stopped to ask what it was costing you. The strange thing about survival is that it often gets rewarded. People admire the person who keeps going. They admire the person who never complains. They admire the person who handles everything. But admiration can be dangerous when it prevents honesty. Because eventually you begin performing the role people expect. You become the strong one, the reliable one, the stable one, even when you're falling apart internally, even when you're exhausted, even when you don't have anything left to give. You continue because that's who you've become, or at least that's who everyone believes you are. And the longer that continues, the harder it becomes to admit the truth. The harder it becomes to say you're struggling. The harder it becomes to say you're tired. The harder it becomes to admit that you're carrying more than anyone realizes. Because now there is something else involved. Expectations. People expect you to be okay. People expect you to handle things. People expect you to remain strong. And sometimes those expectations become another burden. Not because people intend harm, but because nobody sees what's happening underneath the surface. They only see the version of you that survived. They don't see what survival cost. They don't see the sacrifices. They don't see the emotional weight. They don't see the years spent adapting to circumstances you never chose. And eventually you stop seeing those things too. You become so focused on moving forward that you never stop to look at what you've been carrying. You become so accustomed to surviving that survival starts feeling normal. And that's where many people spend years of their lives. Not living, not thriving, simply surviving, without realizing how much it has changed them. The longer someone survives this way, the more difficult it becomes to recognize what they're feeling. Because eventually, exhaustion stops feeling unusual. It becomes familiar. The pressure becomes familiar. The loneliness becomes familiar. The emotional distance becomes familiar. And anything familiar starts feeling normal. That's one of the reasons so many people struggle to explain what's wrong. Nothing feels wrong anymore. Not because they're healthy, because they've adapted. Human beings can adapt to almost anything. They can adapt to stress. They can adapt to disappointment. They can adapt to loneliness. They can adapt to emotional neglect. And while adaptation helps people survive, it can also prevent them from noticing how much damage has accumulated over time. Especially men. Many men were never taught how to describe emotional pain. They learned how to solve problems. They learned how to suppress discomfort. They learned how to keep moving. But very few learned how to sit with difficult emotions without trying to escape them. So when pain appears, they do what they've always done. They distract themselves. They work more. They stay busy. They focus on responsibilities. They convince themselves they'll deal with it later. But later rarely comes. Years pass. The pressure accumulates. The exhaustion accumulates. The disappointments accumulate. And eventually the emotional weight becomes so familiar that it feels like part of their personality. A man who once felt deeply may begin describing himself as detached. A man who once trusted easily may begin describing himself as guarded. A man who once felt hopeful may begin describing himself as realistic. But sometimes those changes are not personality traits. Sometimes they're survival strategies. There's a difference. A person who becomes careful after being hurt isn't cold. A person who becomes independent after being abandoned isn't naturally distant. A person who becomes quiet after being misunderstood isn't necessarily reserved. Sometimes people change because life demanded it. Sometimes people adapt because they had to. The problem is that survival strategies often stay long after the danger is gone. Someone learns not to trust. Years later, they still struggle to trust. Someone learns not to depend on anyone. Years later, they still struggle to ask for help. Someone learns to hide emotions. Years later, they still struggle to express them. The circumstances disappear. The adaptation remains. And eventually it becomes difficult to tell the difference between who you are and what happened to you. That's a question many people never ask themselves. And honest questions often reveal things we would rather avoid. That's why most people never ask them. They're busy. They're distracted. They're surviving. They keep moving because stopping feels uncomfortable. But growth rarely happens while running. Growth usually begins when someone finally stops long enough to look at the truth, not the version they tell other people. The real version. The one underneath the performance. The one underneath the routine. The one underneath the responsibilities. The one that quietly wonders whether carrying everything alone was ever worth it. And maybe that's the real tragedy. Not that people suffer. Everyone suffers. Not that people struggle. Everyone struggles. The tragedy is how many people spend years suffering in silence because they assume nobody wants to hear it. Or worse, because they've convinced themselves they don't need anyone. The truth is that human beings were never designed to carry everything alone. We need understanding. We need connection. We need honesty. We need places where we don't have to perform. Places where we don't have to appear strong. Places where we don't have to pretend we're fine. And for many people, those places barely exist anymore. That's why reflection matters. That's why self-awareness matters. Not because reflection solves everything. Because reflection reveals things. It reveals patterns. It reveals fears. It reveals assumptions. It reveals wounds that have been quietly shaping your life for years. And once something becomes visible, it becomes possible to understand it. Not fix it immediately. Understand it. And understanding changes everything. Because what you understand, you can work with. What you refuse to see controls you from the shadows. That's why the strongest people are not always the people who carry the most. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones willing to look honestly at what they've been carrying, without excuses, without denial, without pretending, just honesty. The kind of honesty most people avoid for years, because honesty can change your life, and change is uncomfortable, but so is staying the same. Eventually, everyone chooses one discomfort or the other. If this conversation resonated with you, I've created a few reflection tools for people who spend a lot of time thinking but rarely have a place to explore those thoughts honestly. They're not designed to motivate you. They're designed to help you slow down, reflect, and ask better questions. You'll find them in the description below. Maybe nobody ever asked if you were okay. Maybe people noticed your achievements. Maybe they noticed your responsibilities. Maybe they noticed how strong you appeared. But strength doesn't tell the whole story, because behind every strong person is usually a version of them that carried more than anyone realized. A version that adapted. A version that survived. A version that kept going when stopping wasn't an option. The question is whether you're still carrying things that no longer belong in your life. Whether you're still protecting yourself from dangers that no longer exist. Whether you're still living according to survival rules you created years ago. Because survival is important. But survival is not the same thing as living. And at some point, everyone has to decide whether they're going to keep carrying the weight forever, or finally stop long enough to understand it. Maybe nobody ever asked if you were okay. But eventually, the more important question becomes this: when was the last time you honestly asked yourself, how much of my current personality was built from experience? How much of it was built from protection? How much of it was built from survival? Because survival changes people, not always dramatically, quietly, gradually, one disappointment at a time, one betrayal at a time, one loss at a time, until eventually the person looking back in the mirror feels familiar but distant at the same time. You recognize yourself, but you don't fully recognize who you've become. That's often the moment when people start feeling disconnected from life. Not because life is terrible, because they haven't stopped long enough to understand what happened to them. And understanding matters, because ignored experiences don't disappear. Ignored emotions don't disappear. Ignored pain doesn't disappear. They simply move into the background, influencing decisions, influencing relationships, influencing expectations, influencing the way people see themselves. Many people spend years believing they're broken when they're actually exhausted. They believe they're weak when they're actually overwhelmed. They believe they've become cold when they've simply become careful. And they believe nobody would understand if they talked about it. Sometimes they're right. Many people won't understand. Many people haven't lived through the same experiences. Many people won't know what to say. But that doesn't mean your experiences aren't real. It doesn't mean your struggles aren't valid. It doesn't mean your exhaustion is imaginary. The cost is still there whether people acknowledge it or not. And that's why one question matters more than most people realize. What has all of this cost you? Not what happened. Not who disappointed you. Not who left. Not who stayed. What did it cost? What did years of pressure cost? What did years of responsibility cost? What did years of pretending cost? What did years of carrying everything alone cost? Because every experience leaves something behind. Some experiences leave wisdom. Some leave strength. Some leave scars. Most leave a combination of all three. The problem is that people often focus only on what they gained. Very few examine what they lost. Maybe you became stronger, but did you also become less trusting? Maybe you became independent, but did you also become isolated? Maybe you became resilient, but did you also become emotionally unavailable? These aren't comfortable questions, but they're honest questions.